Good morning and welcome to High Achiever Radio. I'm your host, Bev Ann Bonds, and I'm joined in the studio today with our producer, Andy Lowe. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Bev Ann. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So I'm going to leak a little news because you said something earlier that kind of got my attention. So you've got some big fitness plans on the horizon for October, I understand. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. I'm going to be doing the Breast Cancer 60-mile walk. So that is one of my challenges for the year, to keep myself a little more fit, which I have not been very good about, and to also do something that scares me.
Here at High Achievers, we don't go small goals. We go big right out of the gate. I love it. Good job, Bev Ann.
All right, yeah, 60 miles. It's nothing like that. But today, we are so fortunate to be joined in the studio with someone that does not lack on achievement at all, and we are joined by Anna Stevens, JD, BBA, and soon-to-be Masters.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so glad that you're here, and it's just amazing to see some of your background and the things that you've done. I mean, coming from another country, not speaking a word of English, I couldn't imagine doing that. And then the achievements that you've even had prior to that. I mean, you've graduated with honors from a teaching college in Russia in 2002. You went to business school. You held some leadership positions there. You were able to graduate with honors from the business school with that and a JD, so that you graduated from law school. And I mean, it's not like any of those achievements alone, but all with honors too. So that's truly amazing. And then you have done some amazing things since you've been here in the United States. So we get to hear more about that in a little bit.
I sure will share.
But you are the founder of EQ for Success. And I know a lot of people are going to go, EQ, what is that? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So EQ stands for emotional intelligence, just like EI. What emotional intelligence is, and there are tons of different definitions, I can at least recall 10 right now in my head, but basically emotional intelligence is one's ability to shift from negative emotional state to positive. And let me give you a real life example. I attended Hall of Fame yesterday, hosted by Georgia State University in Buckhead, and it's located on West Paces Ferry Road. And as you can imagine, there is really not enough space for everybody to turn toward their parking lot for valet parking, given the fact that there were hundreds of people. So I'm about to turn to their parking lot, and I'm waiting for the valet, and I'm waiting for all other cars in front of me, and you can imagine that there is no space for me to go. I can't get out of my car and pick it up and take it somewhere. So the gentleman right behind me goes, honk, 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 and I look in my rear view mirror, and he is basically jumping in his car, and he is doing something crazy like this with his hands, and he is by himself in his car getting wild just because I cannot pull to the parking lot as he wants me, because he has to go and pass me. So emotional intelligence would be in the situation very applicable. If he would be familiar with emotional intelligence concept, self-awareness, stress management, that he would probably ask himself, what can this lady do in such situation? Can she put her wings up and fly in her car? Can she come out of the car, pick it up? Well, obviously not. So the only solution in this situation is to just stand there and wait. And you don't have to get stressed out. To save yourself time, energy, and effort, you really have to think in such situations, what is my best solution, so that you don't get all upset, wound up, getting a headache and things like that. So emotional intelligence is your ability to understand and recognize your emotions and how these emotions affect your behaviors and actions, and also those of others. How I feel will affect you. How I feel will affect my decisions toward you. If I'm your boss and you come to me and you cannot recognize that I am mad at this very moment, you're probably going to get a negative feedback from me. I'm not going to sign the paperwork you want me to sign and things like that. So if you gain the ability to recognize and understand how emotions affect actions and behaviors, then you can better perceive your own objectives, achieve your goals, you can establish better relationships with people. And emotional intelligence is all about establishing mutually satisfying, mutually beneficial relationships with other people and yourself, first of all.
Well, is emotional intelligence something that I'm only going to apply in a negative situation, though, when I'm sitting in traffic and can't control it and need to get my temper into check?
No, absolutely not. Emotional intelligence, by the way, this is not something we're born with. Emotional intelligence is a skill set. It's a set of emotional and social abilities and competencies that you can learn. So let me give you a real life example on how emotional intelligence is being applied in business. I work with companies who experience very high employees turnover. Well, when you come in, you see that these companies most likely hire people for their skill set, for their educational background, for their professional background. However, I always say that, would you marry somebody just because he is handsome? Would you marry somebody just because he's a good dancer? Probably not, most likely not. So hiring somebody for a particular position is just like getting married to somebody. You have to imagine that your company, you as an employer, you're like a bride and you're looking for a groom. So each organization has its own traditions, its own establishments, its own character, its own culture. And not only do you have to make sure that for each particular position you hire people whose skill set matches the description of the job, but also they will be good fit for your culture. And the example can be here that you hire a supervisor and you interview them and you see that they really care for team, they really care for your company, which means they have high social responsibility. However, if you don't assess their emotional intelligence profile and you don't discover in the beginning of your hiring process that, for example, this person has very low self-regard, which means this person can't really put his or herself first. Later on, you will discover that this person is helping me, you, Susan, and everybody else, but not doing their own job.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I love the analogy that you gave with that looking at hiring someone is looking at finding a mate that you want to marry.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so easy to go, well, I'll just get rid of them if they don't work out, and the cost is so detrimental.
Exactly. This is how I come in, and we try to analyze where is this that you're missing out. You're missing out on something. Something is not working. And not only do older managers experience these problems, but younger too. They come to me and they say, I don't know how to hire right people. Well, how do you hire people? Well, I read their resume and I see what they've done, I check their references and I hire them. But then I have to fire them and I have to go back to hiring, and it costs so much money. If an organization has hundreds and hundreds of employees, that's a waste of hours and hours and a lot of money, energy, effort, where you could, for example, have somebody like me come in and run emotional intelligence assessment that is called EQI 2.0, and you and I would sit down and you would tell me for each particular position what would it take for an ideal candidate to do the best on this job, not only as far as their skill set or education, but would they have to be independent in their work, or would you prefer them to not make decisions without your knowledge about it? Would you prefer them to come and check with you all the time, or you want them to be creative, innovative, make something on their own? Then you need different people. So then we create an ideal emotional intelligence profile for each of your positions, and then when you interview people for their resume and skill set and education, as a final step, we run the emotional intelligence assessment EQI 2.0, and you find out if this person is really a good fit for your culture, for this position, and how they're gonna do in the long run. And some people, they're really professional interviewers. They go and they do so well during the interview. They have the ability to create wonderful, very strong first positive impression. However, you find out that on the job they're not gonna do so well, and you put yourself in a position where you have to hire, and then you have to fire, and then you have to hire, and they go back and they're unsatisfied. They tell everybody bad things about you, and if we talk about thousands of employees, that's going to also damage your brand, in addition to your waste of time and money and things like that.
Well, it's amazing to even look at the cost from that perspective, because it's easy to look at it just saying, well, I've got to go through this hiring process again, I've got overstressed workers, but not even thinking about that the morale goes down, especially if someone's talking negatively to all of them, as well as they may be talking to my competitors or someone else out in the market that I have no control over.
You're absolutely right first. So, but I'm glad you mentioned stress. And I talk to many people, and especially small business owners, when they just do, they go, they really don't have time to stop and think how to do things. What is it going to create in long term? So when I talk to them about the stress on the job that they have and their employees experience, they say, why would I worry about well-being of my employees? I pay them money. Well, if this is the only thing you keep in your mind, that's how much you're going to get out of your employees. However, according to the research, 50% of American employees miss from 1 to 2 days of work a year due to stress. 30% miss from 3 to 6, and 18% of American employees miss over 6 days of work a year due to stress. Now, multiply this by the amount of employees you have and how much each of them makes a day, and this is how much money you lose. Plus, you have to go back and pay for their health expenses, for their insurance. Plus, you have to find somebody who will work instead of these employees when they're gone. Now, if you would bring somebody like me and have stress tolerance training, and not just stress tolerance but also resiliency building, and personal resiliency is your capacity to overcome and tolerate adverse life events without experiencing stress, and there are several techniques I teach so that people don't get stressed out, so that they are able to stay more resilient, be more optimistic. Their mind is more focused on the job. They're more concerned about the well-being of your customers, the smile on their face, versus they're hurting, they're stressed out, they're depressed, they're disengaged, they're disconnected. These are not the people whom you want at the job. This is why you need to worry about your employees getting the training in stress management and resiliency building.
Well, a lot of what you're talking about with, emotions, both positive and negative, and we're talking primarily about the workplace. A lot of times you hear people say, well, we don't want emotions in the workplace. We just want someone to come here and work. How realistic is that?
It's absolutely unrealistic. We cannot avoid emotions. And there has been so much years and years of research has been done that you really cannot be that naive thinking that emotions don't have any place at the work environment. This is very naive. We make decisions with emotions. We interact with our customers. This is truly emotional process. If you learn how to be more empathetic, what it means being more empathetic, it means that I can feel for you. I can put myself in your shoes. I can read your body language. I can read your facial expression. Now, if you could improve this capacity of your employees, of your sales force, how better do you think would become your customer service? Now, your employees, your salespeople will be able to truly understand what the customer wants and not annoy them and get on their nerves, but they will be able to satisfy the customer. Now the satisfied customer is going to go and tell their friends, oh my gosh, I had such a great experience at Zappos, for example. I tell you what, Zappos doesn't have any budget for marketing. All they do is apply the concept of emotional intelligence, and they call it delivering happiness to their employees and to their customers. Their employees would stay on the phone with you. I needed my wedding shoes last September when I was preparing for my wedding, and white shoes was off the shelf because it was fall already. So I was shopping at Phipps Plaza, Lenox Mall, everywhere. I was exhausted and I was so disappointed and I didn't know what to do. I needed white shoes for my wedding dress. And the lady at Lenox Mall said, oh, come on, you kidding me? You came here, why did you not go to Zappos? I said, what's Zappos? She said, you don't know about Zappos? I said, I don't. She said, you gotta go to zappos.com and check them out. Baby, and this was the most amazing experience in my life buying shoes. All I found is shoes for $35, not for $35,000, not for $3,500, $35. I told the gentleman that I wanted these shoes and I'm ready to purchase, and he says that, are you sure you don't want me to look for more for you? I said, what exactly do you mean? He said, well, I can search for more for you. Maybe we can find more options for you to choose from. I said, are you kidding me? Are you literally telling me that you will be sitting here searching your web for more shoes for me for $35? He said, absolutely. I can stay on the phone with you as long as you want. Next minute or so, we had a conversation about why. Why would you do this for me? I already feel like you're my best friend. And he said, you know what? Do you want me to send you a book about Zappos? I said, really? He said, yeah, I will just send it to you. I said, how much would it be? He said, oh, it's absolutely free. In addition to that, I can also send you the book about our CEO and how he delivers happiness at Zappos. I'm like, wow. What do you think I did the next day, the next month, and the year that has passed since then? First of all, I buy my shoes only at Zappos since then. And secondly, I go and I talk in my class, to my friends, to everybody I meet, I talk about Zappos. Now, if you can deliver that type of customer service to your customers, how do you think they're gonna go and brag for your brand? But it all starts with your employees. If you care for their well-being, for improving their emotional intelligence skills, for improving their self-awareness, self-regard, confidence, building their self-image, making them feel good about themselves and the workplace where they are, creating a healthier work environment, then they're going to deliver so much more value to your customers. Then these customers are going to buy more from you, tell more people about you, and then you're gonna see incredible impact on your business. Your bottom line is going to just skyrocket.
Well, what about for a company that already has some staff in place? Say, I've got some great people. I'm not sure that I'm really utilizing them the best. You know, I feel like sometimes they're getting a little worn. Is there a point where you could come in at that time and help go through the process so that they can make sure that they're utilizing the person to the best? And not in the sense of that they have to get work out of them, but the feeling rewarded as well.
You're absolutely right. The feeling, rewarding your employees and making sure they understand that they're making a difference is so important. And very often, people, they work, they do their good, but they don't do their best because they don't understand what's in it for me. They don't see the cause and consequence. And a great example here can be at Google. At Google, they had created emotional intelligence training that is several hours spread over 7 weeks, and it's called Search Inside Yourself. They just published a book that's called Search Inside Yourself, and they also established Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, which is silly if you're gonna see how it's spelled. And they say if anything is serious, it has to be silly. You really have to reward your people, which will encourage them. When you have great high potential talent and you want to get more out of them, or you want to make sure that they feel good about their job and that they're gonna do their best, not just their good, then I can come in and I can assess at which point you're standing, and sometimes you may find things like you don't think about. You may just discover a lot of valuable information, and you will, once you find out what your point A is, then you can discuss with me what your point B, what it is that you want, what your goal is, and I can map it out for you like your GPS. I can tell you how to get there, provide training, provide exercises. I do a lot of workshops in Atlanta area and in Savannah, and I do coaching over Skype with people. People read my blog, and I get calls like from all over the world. People call me even at night from New Zealand. I got a lady who said, "Oh my gosh, I'm reading your blog now. I want you to participate in my teleseminar." I got a gentleman who called me early in the morning, and he said, "I'm reading your blog now, and I think you need to help me with avoidance." So I'm like, "What's avoidance?" And he said, "Well, instead of doing what I need to do, I do something else all the time." And these are things I can help with. But people who work for you, they are your most important asset. That's why they're your capital. People don't work for your table, for your chair, for your building. They work for your organization, but an organization is not a tangible something. It's your building or chair or your computer. They don't work for things like that. They work for you. So you're there to make sure that they find meaning in what they do. And I worked for the government for a year, and I saw a lot of disconnected people who just don't understand what they do on a job and how it's going to impact the general public, people who call to the courthouse, and their life, their financial stability may depend on whether or not you answer the phone and provide them with the information. So when you're able to deliver this information to people, when you're able to show them how they create a positive difference in the world with what they do on a daily basis, if you're able to have your people satisfied with what they do, they're going to be so much more optimistic. They're going to be so much more happy. They will wake up in the morning and look forward to this day.
Is there a way to apply the emotional intelligence practices to a more virtual workforce? Because, as things are changing, the traditional corporate world where people go into a building isn't quite the same anymore.
The minute you start working from home and let your employees start doing virtual work, then you have even less ability to supervise them. Then you need to rely on their own judgment. This is what makes emotional intelligence training and coaching in such situation absolutely essential. It's all about how they answer the phone, what they say, how they finish with the customer, what kind of feeling they create in the customer. Often I pick up the phone and I call, and I will never call back. And often I pick up the phone and I call, and I want to call again and again and refer my friends, because they're so nice. They provide you with all the information. You don't have a feeling like they're trying to get rid of you. You actually feel like they're there for you. What else can I do for you? How can I serve you? And of course, this will positively impact your brand. We also need to talk about, when we talk about virtual offices, we need to talk about social media. What you tweet, how you tweet it, how conscious you are when you're creating your tweets, and what kind of questions you answer when you're tweeting, Facebooking. Do you just tweet or Facebook about your company, yourself, your sales? You're pushing. Nobody is going to be interested in that. Today, people have, in a global environment, in a world where there are no walls, they have the ability to vote with their dollar to somebody, for somebody who creates more value for them. So when you tweet, when you Facebook, when you post things on LinkedIn, when you write your blog, you have to make sure that you always answer a question: what's in it for me, if I'm the general public or your customer who is reading it? If you're just blogging or you're just Facebooking, you're pushing, I'm not going to come back to your page anymore. So what I do every morning at 8 o'clock, everybody knows it's on my blog, I tweet about it. Every morning at 8 o'clock on my Facebook page, EQ for Success, I post one motivational video, never missed. I also provide inspirational wallpapers for people, and a lot of articles I share from people just like me who write about emotional intelligence. That's how you deliver the value to your followers.
So it sounds like when I'm applying the emotional intelligence, we've talked a lot about employees, but you're even bringing up the side of a customer in the sense of it does impact customer service, but I really need to think about what's in it for them and why am I doing this, not just to make a sale, but to help others. Or is that my goal really when I'm doing it?
Absolutely. And as a consumer, I can tell you, Vivian, that a minute I feel like the person, the only intent a particular person has is to sell me something, I become disconnected immediately and I tell, thank you so much, I'm not interested. Now, if you can wonder about me, what I need and how you can satisfy my needs, I'm going to listen to you forever. And if you can create this type of mentality and share it with your customer service folks, if you can share it with your sales force, then you will see so much more value. You will see so much more positive, high return on investment.
Well, I think with the way that things are changing, when you're really tapping into all of this, then you're applying the principles that you're saying. And it just makes me think back to a conversation that I had with someone not too long ago saying, well, this particular type of marketing that I'm doing is getting zero response. And exactly what they were doing is pushing the whole time. There wasn't any reason that you want to read their stuff. It didn't give you any reason. That there was nothing I got from it, even in 10 seconds, that I'd want to read it, so I'll just get rid of it.
I have a secret answer to that if you want me to share.
I would love for you to.
This emotional intelligence subscale is called empathy. And empathy, like I said, is your ability to feel for another person. When you're able to take your emotional intelligence assessment that has been tested on 6 million people in 60 different countries, and specifically to your listeners, I'm going to give 33% discount on that, and I will give them the code, the magic code that they will have to send me if they want to take it with discount. So if you take the assessment and you find out that you're not where you need to be with empathy, then there are several steps you can take to increase your empathy. Now, when you increase your empathy, what you gain is the ability as a business owner or a salesperson to think that, who is my ideal customer? When my ideal customer goes to bed at night, what is it that keeps them up? Why can't they sleep? What bothers them? What can I do with my services, my products, and everything I offer to help them sleep better at night, which means to satisfy that particular need? Now, you go and talk to your people. You go and find out, you answer them questions. You create some kind of polls. You find this feedback from people. Once you find it out, then you can better sell them, because now you can adjust your value proposition. And all this comes from empathy. If you just adopt this way of thinking, what keeps my ideal customer, whoever he or she is, up at night, and what can I do to help them sleep better, you will see positive results immediately.
Well, it sounds like even from that is thinking of something, which happens sometimes, that things don't go exactly right, realizing where the pain was for the person and acknowledging that, I'm sorry this happened and this is what we can do to rectify so it doesn't happen again. It really goes a long way even on that aspect.
And it's not only about pain or something like that, it's also about money spending. For example, my ideal customer is a corporation or a small business that is experiencing the problem with hiring right people, or that is experiencing problems with their employees being totally disengaged. So then I think this way. What keeps them up at night? Well, what keeps them up at night is, first of all, high employees turnover, spending a lot of money on firing and hiring, and they can't deliver the value they have because people don't care, they are disengaged. So now I come in and I adjust my value proposition to help them get their people engaged, to help them develop their people, to help them bring more meaning into their employees' life, which will bring more satisfaction with the job, more optimism, more concentration. People will be more effective. And that's how I think, and this is why I've been, very good at delivering my value, because I mean, I have so much to sell, but you don't care about it. You care what your needs are and how I can help you, and this is how I talk to you about it, how I can help you, what's in it for you.
Well, it's definitely a nice turn to know that someone's thinking about, not just what the bottom line is, but knowing, that there's something that I've got, and not to stay on the pain side, but I've got something going on that needs correcting, or I feel unfulfilled in, and it could be better satisfied. So it's nice to know that there's a resource out there for that sort of thing. Excuse me, but I also wanted, there was an article that you recently had in the spring edition of the Georgia Chiropractor.
I brought you magazine as a gift, by the way. Here it is.
Great, and we have an awesome copy of it, and I'll put that up for listeners to be able to get a
Sure.
copy of the article.
Okay.
But there were several things that you mentioned in there of how this leads to a healthier lifestyle, and you had some of the points that you brought up was having emotional self-awareness, regard for yourself, independence, impulse control, and stress tolerance. And we've touched on a couple of these things today, but the one that really kind of struck a chord with me that I was curious about that you don't hear people mention a lot is emotional intelligence and impulse control. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, and I have another gift for you, and I'm sorry, I unfortunately didn't know that Andy was another person here, and I only have one chocolate, and this chocolate I'm going to give you as a gift is from Women's Leadership Conference that I was invited to from Georgia State University. At this conference last week there were 600 women leaders. This is exactly what they talked about. They talked about emotional self-awareness and impulse control. What is it? Let me tell you more about it and what's in it for you and for your listeners. So when you're not aware of your emotions, you really can't do anything about them. If you don't know what you don't know, this is the worst thing that can happen to you. You need to know what you don't know so you can act upon it. And here's an example. As you know, I experienced domestic violence in my life, and just recently in 2009. And the day that fight happened, when I had to leave my home and go live in a shelter, what I remember about that day is that I hardly remember anything. That's what I remember. I had a fever. My entire body was hot. My hands were shaking. I was all sweaty. I couldn't breathe. Police arrived and I had to open the windows and I couldn't breathe. So this all is being caused by very strong negative emotions that create harmful mind states. What can it cause? It can cause a suicide. Here's an example. That day, fortunately, I was able to leave my husband and go live in a shelter, and everything from that point on was fine with me. But just recently, I was sitting in a chiropractor's office, my chiropractor where I go, and the gentleman said, "Hey, do you remember such and such?" And she said, "Oh yeah." And he said, "Well, he shot himself in the head." And she was like, "Why?" "Well, he had so much money, they had millions of dollars, several houses, 6 cars, this and that, lake house, everything you can possibly imagine." So he's talking about somebody I don't know, but I got interested because this is a very tragic story, and I'm listening. And he said he got into some partnership, some business deal, and he put all the money he had, kids, money for school and everything into this deal, and he failed. That day when he found out that he failed, he came home and shot himself in the head. Now, first of all, this is an ability to recognize your emotions and how these emotions affect your behaviors and actions. Secondly, it's inability to deal effectively with stress. Thirdly, it's inability to deal constructively with failure. We all need to allow ourselves to experience failure. It's okay to get on your knees, get up, and go and hold your head up high and make sure that you learn from your failure. When I came to the shelter, this was my very thought. I lost everything. I sold my property in Russia. I graduated from 2 schools. I don't speak language here. I don't know anybody here. That's all I wanted to end up my life. Now, what I saw is a poster there in a shelter that 300 women did exactly this thing. They committed a suicide when they experienced domestic violence, and I started thinking, I'm not going to be one of them, and I'm going to find a way to deal with these negative emotions, with this first impulse. I'm gonna do this so that they know. Well, ask yourself, what is it that they will know? And how will you be satisfied when you find out what they know? Because you never will be around anymore. This is the last minute of your life. So between a negative, strong emotion and a feeling, there are 3 seconds when you can stop and tell yourself, what is it that I really try to accomplish? Why am I feeling this way? Am I acting out of fear? Am I anxious? What creates this feeling? What am I going to do about it? Am I going to allow this negative feeling to destroy my life? Or am I going to shift my emotional state immediately? These are the techniques I teach. To shift your mind immediately, within seconds, from negative to positive, and move on with your life, so that you can accomplish your goals. But I know you also asked me about impulse control and how it's applicable in a daily life. And for example, you're trying to lose some weight, let's say, and you set up your goal, and you know that you need to eat a salad versus French fries, but your friends call you out, let's say at 10 o'clock at night, and you think to yourself, well, it's only one time, and you go and you have 4 beers and chips and French fries and everything. And you're like, well, I'm not losing weight for some reason, right? So next Friday they call you and they want to take you out, and you're like, well, it's only one time. I mean, I didn't even eat breakfast today. Why don't I go? I deserve it. This is a low impulse control in action. When you have healthy impulse control, you gain the ability to ask yourself, is what I'm going to do now, will what I'm going to do now contribute to my goal, or will it delay it? And it's very applicable at the workplace. When I'm mad at you and I'm gonna tell you how I feel about you and what you've done and it's all your fault, I need to stop and ask myself, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish with it? Okay, I'm going to tell you that it's all your fault and I'm going to argue with you until I die or we fight. Now, what is it going to do for us, for you and me? Why don't I take a deep breath? And why don't I think for a few minutes? And I call it going to the balcony technique. You imagine that you get out of your body and you're taking yourself to an imaginary balcony, and you look at yourself and everything that's happening with this person or in that particular situation as if you were not yourself. Now, what will this imaginary outsider think about this particular situation? What will this outsider tell you about how to act? If this outsider saw you 5 years from now, will he or she remember what happened? How valuable would it be? And then you act accordingly.
I love that tip. And there's because that really gives you a second to process everything as opposed to just being reactive and being a little more proactive on it. And the other thing that I liked is a helpful hint that you gave in the article was saying that if you are working on a habit, write down the things that you need to do that kind of reinforce that, and then put it on a bright colored card or sheet of paper and keep it in front of you, so that when someone does call and say, hey, you ready to go have some beers and some fries, you can say, let's go get a salad and some green tea and take a break and maybe do something a little bit different. Because it's all a compound effect for everything that goes on.
It's compound effect, you're absolutely right. And what I've discovered is that you can never satisfy everybody. And there will always be that very person who will say, oh, come on, Anna, it's just one time. But this one time happens, and I'm going to tell you about my impulse control and self-awareness in action, how I do it. And I have a very cheap cell phone that I got when I got out of shelter. It's Metro PCS phone for $29. and I pay $40 a month on my Metro PCS bill because all I want from my phone is to be a phone. I have an iPad that I have with me to check my emails and stay on top of my everything I do. So I also have a MacBook Pro. Last year, I had to go, I bought this MacBook Pro last fall, and I had to go a lot, many times, almost every day I had to go to the Apple Store for something. So when the new iPhone came out, imagine me standing in a store forever, waiting on the line for something in regards to my Mac or my iPad too. And all these people are aligned there, and they're waiting for their new iPhone, and I'm like, ugh. It's only, $299, and I really deserve it. I work so hard, and I have good grades at school, and I'm just, I'm doing all these wonderful things with my life. I deserve it. I want it. Okay, Anna, let's ask yourself, how much is it going to cost you on a monthly basis? Well, it's going to cost me $60 plus to what I pay now. So if I stay with my phone, by the end of the year, I can have $720 in my saving account. And every time I would go to Apple Store and I would have this conversation with myself, but I deserve it. Okay, let's think about how it's going to affect your financial goals in long term. Until this day, I carry in my purse that Metro PCS phone for $29 until it dies. I dropped it so many times and I told myself I will buy me a new phone when this dies. This is impulse control in action. You ask yourself, is it going to contribute to my long-term goal, or is it going to delay it?
Well, it's definitely a great thing to put into practice, and it really all ties back to taking just that second or a few seconds to think it through, but also being clear on what your goals are and who you are and what you want. So,
and talking to yourself.
Yeah, and talking in a constructive conversation of that supporting your goals, not that, I didn't do this or this isn't happening at this time.
You're also right about saying in a constructive manner, because this is very big and powerful key to success. Many people can achieve so much more in their lives if they just discover and fix their negative self-talk. I'm an idiot, I'm a failure again. I'm not gonna do it. No, I don't know if I can do it. I'm gonna fail, they're gonna hate me, especially women. Especially women who were raised in families where there wasn't much love or support, because our brain, because of its neuroplasticity, builds itself according to our repeated experiences. So if your mom used to tell you, you're wonderful, you can do it, go, I believe in you, you can do it, then you learn from an early age how to love yourself, feel good about yourself, what to think about yourself in a positive manner. However, if you're like me and come from one-parent family where everybody was an alcoholic, and your mom used to tell you you're stupid, your hands are too fat, your body's too flat, and even though I did very well at school, my mom would tell me, it doesn't really matter, you're stupid anyway. Well, what it does to you in the long term is that now when you have to go and live in a society, then you come in a room. I remember I would come in a classroom, and you can see my hands are very dry now. You don't see any sweat on my hands. It used to be that I would be all sweaty. Absolutely, I would be just freaking out every time I have to go somewhere. Why? Because I would say to myself, they're gonna hate you. You're stupid, you're too tall, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too this or too that. And all this is going to affect the way you build your life, the way you choose your relationships, the way you create positive or negative habits such as smoking, drugs, and things like that, because we all want to feel good about ourselves. Fortunately, I was able to discover all these emotional intelligence strategies when I was 12 years old in my library at school. And I started applying them, and that's how I was able to get myself out of that family and this whole situation, and make myself what I was meant to be. And negative self-talk is very destructive, and it's destroying. It's going to destroy your career, your marriage, your relationship with your children. If you don't tell yourself wonderful things and you don't make sure you feel good about yourself, nobody will feel good in the presence of yours. So what I do and what I teach during my workshops, I always have a mirror, or I have an imaginary mirror, and I tell people that because of the brain's neuroplasticity, it builds itself according to our repeated experiences. If you just remember this very simple thing, then guess what? You can go back and rebuild all that negativity that your mom embedded in you. I used to talk to myself in the mirror in the bathroom and tell myself good things. And when you start doing it first, it's like, oh, it's silly, come on, I love you, okay, I said it, I gotta go. No, be honest with yourself and really look yourself deeply in the eye and ask yourself, whom do I see? Is this how I imagine myself? Now, how do I imagine myself? If I want to be that self, the way I perceive me, if I want to be that self in the mirror, what is it that I can do every day? I can tell myself that I'm a wonderful person, I'm a beautiful woman, I'm a high achiever because I've accomplished so much in my life. And sometimes it's like this self-talk is like, no, you're not, come on, you just failed yesterday, you did that stupid thing. No, well, let me tell you this, I taught myself English in 1.5 years. Okay, but you know, you said something stupid in a classroom, but it's okay. And this is my conversation with myself, but it's okay. I actually immigrated in a different country and I was able to reestablish my life and become successful within 3 years. Okay, now I feel good about myself. And everybody can apply it at the workplace, in their relationships, and this will create very positive results, especially with our children. It is our responsibility to teach our children from a very early age social awareness, emotional intelligence, empathy toward people, how to read body language. Why would I care my children to learn body language? Because you want your children not to bother you when you're on the phone on an important call with your partner. Now, when you don't teach your children that, they weren't born with this ability to recognize that you're busy. They have to learn it somehow. They're not going to learn it from your neighbor. They're not going to learn it anywhere but from you. It is your responsibility to sit down with your children and explain things to them. And I always suggest to people, we don't have cable at my home. We never watch TV. Even though I have a big TV, everybody can see it on my pictures, but on this TV I present workshops at my home. I do group coaching and things like that. But you know, I told you I have an iPad too, so of course our children have different devices, and when they come in and I talk to them and they're on their devices, what I do is I stop everything, cooking dinner, I stop everything, I take my iPad and I sit there and play with my iPad, and now they need me, they come to me, is dinner ready? I don't hear them, I'm playing with my iPad. Anya, can you not hear me? I don't hear them, I'm playing with my iPad. They're right there in front of me. I don't pay any attention, I keep playing. And then eventually when they get all, wound up, then I turn to them and I tell them, do you like what I do now? No, I don't. Is this what you did a second ago to me? Yes, that is. Do you like it? No, I don't. Do you think I like it? No. What do you think I would expect from you? Well, you probably want to talk to me. And so now if you wanted to put my iPad down and go cook dinner and talk to you, probably when I ask you to do that, are you going to do it? Oh yeah, and it works. You only have to tell them so many times and it works.
Well, it's definitely great to see that by example, because I think so frequently that parents think that just yelling or screaming is going to get
Will never help.
And it won't. You can scream till you're blue in the face. They still tune out after a point in time. But when they see the practice in action and see how it is, they can understand it better because it's less abstract.
You're absolutely right. You have to answer 3 questions. What, why, and how. And what is your head? Why is your soul? And how is your hands? When I got married, the children I'm talking about, they're my stepchildren, they're my husband's children, and he always tells them, remember to be a good boy. We have 2 boys. And they're like, okay. And so one day I asked my husband, do they know what it means to be a good boy? He said, of course they do. I said, okay, I'm going to go ask them. And so I said, Philip and Alan, do you know what it means to be a good boy? They said, yes, it means to be a good boy. Well, tell me exactly, what does it mean? I don't know. And they can't express it. Now, if they can't verbalize it, that means they don't understand it. that means they can't do it if they don't understand it. So you have to explain to them what your expectations of your children are and how they can fulfill them. And you need to explain to them why. How would it benefit you and them and the family as a whole? And that's what I do all the time with the children. And we've experienced great results with them. I have been married for almost a year. So emotional intelligence has been a success by being taught at school to children at a very early age, and the results that they see now is that their grades go up because their self-confidence goes up, their performance at any other areas of their life just skyrockets, because now children start believing that they can have make good things happen for themselves and for others as well. Violence, bullying, suicides, all these terrible things that happen within teen communities and little children, they don't know how to deal with failure, how to deal with rejection. I hate you. One of my sons is such a handsome boy. My children are Indian. My husband's ex-wife is Indian. So my husband said, well, children tell Alan at school that he is ugly. And I started talking to him, and I just tell him every day that he is such a handsome and smart and everything. And I mean, it makes a positive difference. So schools is something I really want to work with. I would love to work with schools and create this positive impact on the lives of children. And now, leadership, we talk about leadership. Leadership is a character trait. You don't buy leadership. You really, I mean, this is not something you just obtain in a moment. It has to be developed in you. You have to develop it with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence outlines the base for authentic leadership, caring for people, yourself, the society as a whole, and it makes a positive difference on the company's triple bottom line, because company's corporate social responsibility doesn't start with out of the blue. It starts with the executive social responsibility, how much I care for what my company does, what I create for the economy as a whole, how much I care for my waste and what steps I take to reduce them. And I wanted to make sure that I tell everybody about my event that will take place in Savannah on May 19th at Day Chiropractic Savannah on 7505 Waters Avenue. It's a great event, 4 hours training session with healthy lunch provided, where I will share all my secrets, and it will be very hands-on experience, and people can go to my website under events and register for that. We only have 15 seats available.
And the web address that anyone that's interested in registering for it can go to?
EQforsuccess.com. EQ stands for emotional intelligence, forsuccess.com. And people can reach out to me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/EQforsuccess, twitter.com/EQforsuccess, youtube.com/EQforsuccess, and on LinkedIn as well. And my blog, of course, EQforsuccess.wordpress.com. I'm always available for questions.
Well, perfect. And I feel like we could go on for hours more because there's so much more that I want to learn, so we'll have to have a follow-up session to this. But I'd like to thank you, Anna Stevens, for being here, because this has been incredibly fascinating to learn how we can apply both the positive and the negative side to slowing ourselves down, thinking about things, and then getting more out of it, and how we can use this total process to help get more for employees, not more out of them, but more for them, so that they're happier at work and our clients are happier as well.
Which is very important, and which is what we want for our bottom line. And I wanted to make sure that I fulfill my promise I gave in the beginning of this conversation. Anybody who wants to take emotional intelligence assessment EQI 2.0 on my website has to write down a code, and the code is EQI Achiever. This code will give you 33% discount, which is $50 you can save on taking this assessment, and it also comes with free 1-hour coaching session with me.
So I would highly encourage all of our listeners to take Anna up on that, and the code when you go to register for that is EQI Achiever. so that you can get your 33% discount. Again, I'd like to thank Anna Stevens for being here. This has been incredibly fascinating. I'm Bev Ann Bond, our host for High Achiever Radio, where we are looking at the ways that we can get more out of life and enjoy everything more. And we're it's sponsored by Business Support Solutions, so we'd like to thank our sponsor. If you'd like to know more about them, you can go to www.b-supportsolutions.com. And again, if you'd like to know more about Anna Stevens, you can go to eqforsuccess.com. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Thank you.